Thymosin Beta 4 and Thymosin Alpha 1. Been shown to promote tissue repair, may support bone marrow recovery after chemotherapy, could indirectly contribute to improved blood cell production. With BPC-157, primarily known as a tissue healing peptide, may indirectly support blood cell recovery. That can be really helpful. And then finding erythropoietin mimetics, those will help with increasing red blood cell counts. LL37, it's a human antimicrobial peptide. It consists of 37 amino acids. You could look at it as a broad spectrum antimicrobial, so use it against bacteria, fungi, and viruses. Hey everybody, welcome to the Health Accelerator Challenges. This is your host, Cade Archibald. Hope everyone's having an amazing Wednesday. You get to listen to Cade today. Reagan is working with a group. He is in Washington State and just diving into some really cool stuff for a group up there. I think group of financial advisors. So I'm going to be diving in. I had a request come in a couple weeks ago, and I have to apologize. I had promised him last week we were going to dive into this topic, but we missed it, and we had Tasha and David on last week talking about HRT, and so I hope you guys got some really good insights on hormone replacement therapy, how it works, how it can be effective. If you maybe shoot me some lines in the chat box if you have any insights, any feedback. But it was awesome having them on, and I know that I had David had said you had a document that he was trying to share with everyone. And so I wanted to share that with you all, just so you had it with you. This is not what we're covering today. But yeah, it shows all the different hormone pathways and what cholesterol turns into progesterone and cortisol, all these different items, how they all interact with each other. So kind of a cool diagram that he shared there. What I'm going to be talking about today, it's a really cool topic around, had someone email in asking a question around what kind of peptides or items would be helpful for someone with some red blood cell issues, hemoglobin, hematocrit depletion, post-chemotherapy. And so I just, along with Reagan, did a kind of deep dive research into this. There are some peptides right off the bat that we can go into. Some of the main ones that you should be aware of are the thymulins. So your thymulin, that peptide itself, really effective at building the blood, immune system, those things. Some of the other items would be your Thymosin Beta 4 and Thymosin Alpha 1. So those are both peptides that are found in the thymus gland, and they've been shown to promote tissue repair, may support bone marrow recovery after chemotherapy, could indirectly contribute to improved blood cell production. That's on Thymosin Beta 4. And then the other one is BPC-157. And so with BPC-157, primarily known as a tissue healing peptide or for its properties of tissue healing, may indirectly support blood cell recovery. And so that can be really helpful. And then finding erythropoietin mimetics, those will help with increasing red blood cell counts and everything post, and those can all be really helpful peptides when it comes to building your red blood cells. Along with that, so some other things, obviously there's kind of some standards with using iron. We have a few different herbal formulas that we'll utilize to build up iron levels and hematocrit levels if they are depleted. But yeah, I think one thing to understand if we kind of break this down is first is understanding what peptides are and how they can help here. And so these peptides, they're small chain amino acids that they come together, little tiny molecules that can make up amino acids that then amino acids produce proteins, but they help with signaling appropriately. And so if we get the right peptides or the right signaling, then those cells can express more vibrantly. And so there's some of those peptides that are going to help with that kind of erythropoietin recovery process, or the EPO. That's going to be, I mentioned some of the thymulins. Some other key peptides would be like CJC1295 ipamorelin, or any like your growth hormone releasing peptides. Those can help with building up that red blood cell process. BPC-157 for tissue repair. You also have Thymosin Beta 4. It's going to be more for systemic healing. Epitalin for circadian rhythm regulation. So if you think about how epitalin works, it's going to be more on the HPA axis, and it's a telomerase, so it's going to help lengthen out, enhance telomeres. With that process, if you're working on that HPA axis, that's your hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, that's going to help with cortisol and that cortisol hormone. Cortisol's out of whack. You're definitely not going to produce appropriate amounts of red blood cells. And so if it can be optimized, that's something that could indirectly help with those red blood cells as well. Some different ways that you can dive into that. Let's just giving you a little more insight on Thymosin Alpha 1, because that's one that can really, it's got significant potential for improving overall health outcomes, immune function, and recovery. So some interesting facts on Thymosin Alpha 1, naturally occurring peptide in the thymus gland, has 28 amino acids. It's derived from, and so what it can do, number one is immune system modulation. So Thymosin Alpha 1 is a powerful modulator of immunity and inflammation, helps enhance and restore immune function. How it does that, really cool process by stimulating T cell mediation and immune responses, regulates both innate and adaptive immune responses. It can also help by activating dendritic cells and establishing a balance between inflammation and tolerance. So some different ways that Thymosin Alpha 1's been used. A lot of different clinical contexts, but it's been a treatment in immunocompromised states for malignancies, enhancing vaccine responses, especially in elderly or immune compromised patients. Also reduced morbidity and mortality in sepsis and various infections. So that's really interesting. That was a study done by the Division of Research out of South Florida. Division of Research and Academic Affairs, Larkin Health System. Also, potential treatment for severe COVID-19 cases. I'm not going to go into that because I'll probably, our YouTube channel may not be here next week. Um, management of chronic viral infections like hepatitis B and C, treatment of autoimmune conditions, chronic infections like Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr viruses. Some of the studies that they've done in cancer and tumor activity. So Thymosin Alpha 1 has some anti-tumor activity. And this is something that came out of Kirkland Natural Medicine from Dr. Teresa Richter. Very, very interesting specifics there. Also, it can reduce toxicity from chemotherapy, improve quality of life, decrease infections. And that's straight out of a PubMed article here. If you're interested in diving more into that, it goes really deep dive, a comprehensive review of the literature. Literally, it's just titled Thymosin Alpha 1. A great study. Thymosin Alpha 1, super, super powerful. And so, along with that, some of this can help with oxidative stress and tissue protection. It has protective effects against oxidative damage by enhancing antioxidant enzyme levels. Interesting thing. So some of the safety and administration. So Thymosin Alpha 1 is considered extremely safe, typically administered under medical supervision. It's available in synthetic analog for clinical use under the trade name Zadaxin. So it's been used as like a pharmaceutical drug mass manufactured for some great stuff, but it's been an incredible peptide that's been pretty challenging to get ever since COVID. Just there's a lot of claims being made around it around that time, and I'm sure most of you are aware of what happens when some of these really effective treatments and peptides get shown off a little too much, get a little too much spotlight put on them. And if people start making claims that they're curing different diseases or problems, then they become a lot more challenging to get. But what's really cool, we've been able to get the compound LL37 and Thymosin Alpha 1. So it's in one vial. It's been really impactful immune peptide because you look at all the helpful properties when it comes to Thymosin Alpha 1. And so if you're trying to build red blood cells or just build your immune system up, whether it's, there's been chemotherapy that happened or if not, even if just you're immunocompromised, there is some really impactful peptide action with, you have Thymosin Alpha 1 and all those details I gave you, as well as LL37. It's a human antimicrobial peptide. It consists of 37 amino acids. You could look at it as a broad spectrum antimicrobial. So use it against bacteria, fungi, and viruses. Really dynamic peptide here. And if you look up, there's a study that was published in end of May 2021, the potential of human peptide LL37 as an antimicrobial and antibiofilm agent. Some really, really awesome stuff. It's got immunomodulatory functions, including suppression of inflammation responses, including induced by TLR2 and TLR4 activation. It enhances activation of nucleic acid sensing. And It's also involved in wound healing and re-epithelialization of human skin. So, getting that epithelial cells functioning. It's also got some angiogenic activity. So it helps with angiogenesis or kind of increasing, enhancing blood cells or blood vessels. Interacts with bacteria cell walls. So some of the mechanisms of action with LL37. And so if we're looking at overall, the original topic or the original question is what could be some really helpful peptides or different things for building red blood cells, hematocrit, due to post-chemotherapy. So I think just going back to the original question there, number one is going to be thymosin alpha 1, I would say is probably going to be the most impactful. You have thymulin, which is very similar to thymosin alpha 1, thymosin beta 4. So you have your thymus peptides. Those are probably going to be the biggest ones to help build up that blood. And so you wouldn't necessarily want to be on all of them all at once, but those are ones that you could kind of utilize and cycle through with the guidance of your practitioner that you're working with. Along with those, you have BPC 157, talked about that. Quite a bit of information on BPC. And then epitalin, and then ARA 290 is another one that we didn't touch on, as well as the LL37. So I'm going to dive in a little bit on ARA 290, and this is a peptide that it's been fairly challenging to find a really good source for ARA. It was on end of last quarter's category 2 peptides for the FDA put out. And so the ARA 290, though, is just awesome. One thing that I noticed personally, just I have to say this anecdotally, but the endurance levels I experienced when I was doing ARA, mountain biking, could mountain bike a lot longer, further, and my lung capacity just seemed so much better. Favorite thing for me was the endurance factor. If you look at what it can do on neuropathic conditions, so if someone has neuropathy or some nerve problems, it can really be helpful there as well. It activates anti-inflammatory and tissue repair pathways without stimulating erythropoiesis. So, it can help with small nerve fibers or conditions like sarcoidosis, type 2 diabetes. It helps with neuropathic pain. It's even been shown to improve metabolic control in type 2 diabetes. This is some info this is out of the BMC study. But yeah, it shows some really, really impactful things with diabetes, neuropathy, neuropathic pain. In type 2 diabetes patient, it's improved A1C levels and lipid profiles, increased corneal nerve fiber density in patients with reduced baseline density. And then the safety profile in the clinical trials it's been through, no significant safety concerns were raised. Well tolerated in patients with sarcoidosis and type 2 diabetes. Dosage and administration, I won't go into that, but it was administered daily for a month, and just saw some really, really great things. Some of the advantages: activates tissue protective pathways without hematopoietic effects of EPO, potentially avoiding serious side effects associated with EPO therapies. And so EPO, that's your erythropoietin therapies. And so, essentially the peptides that can be really helpful for building red blood cells, just to review, you got your thymosins, your thymulin. So thymulin, thymosin alpha 1, thymosin beta 4, all really effective, really helpful. And then you have your BPC 157, it's a tissue healer. You have LL37, great for antimicrobial factors. Epitalin, that's your helping with your HPA axis. It's going to work more on cortisol as a hormone. If you can have that be stable, as well as overall your HPA axis right sized, operating appropriately, can be very, very beneficial. And then you have your ARA 290. Helping with vascularity there and some of the neuropathic functions. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. I love the emails and the questions that come in. If you have a certain topic or a certain question, this is a great place to start. So you can send me an email, Cade, CADE at acueastwest.com. If you have a question that you'd like us to cover, more than happy to jump into it. I know, I believe Reagan's going to be diving into some really interesting things next time. And I appreciate you guys jumping in, being willing to learn some of this really crazy peptide world. There's so many intriguing, awesome things that you can do with all these different peptides. And so really fun stuff. Appreciate you, and you all have an amazing night. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.